Hello everybody, I am Tiffany with Voices for Independence, Fitness and Activities. I am here to share a cooking recipe with you. This week we have been creating dishes through the decades from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and now we're into the 80s. Popular dishes in the 80s is what we're going to be creating today. So the recipe I have for you this morning is something that a lot of people started baking in the 80s. A lot of people were going back to work. If it was a two-parent household, they were both out in the workforce, or if it was a one-parent, they were working, and they didn't have a lot of time to be home making those homemade meals and treats and snacks for the kids. So this was a recipe they started creating that was easy to make. It didn't take a lot of time, and they could keep it in the house for a while for the kids to snack on. We are going to be making chocolate chip cookie Blondie bars. So by turning the cookie into a bar, not only was it quicker to make, but you were able to keep it fresher longer. So the recipe goes as follows. It's similar to a chocolate chip cookie recipe, but a little bit different. Some of the ingredients are changed up. For starters, we're going to take 2 sticks of butter and you're going to melt them and then let it cool slightly, which I have done for us already. We're going to need 1.5 cups of brown sugar. Unlike chocolate chip cookie traditional recipe where you use white and brown sugar, we're using just brown sugar for this recipe. You'll also need 2 eggs, a little bit of vanilla. We will need some flour. I believe we have 2 and just a touch more, 2 and 2 tablespoons of flour, a half a teaspoon of baking soda, so it's a little bit less baking soda. For the bar, we want more of an even rise out of it. Like in a cookie, we really like a nice plump cookie. This will make it a nicer consistency to create the bar. And then obviously we need our chocolate chips, and this recipe calls for the miniature chocolate chips. We're using a little less than we would in a cookie recipe. We're only using 1.25 cups instead of the 2 full cups. So what you're gonna do first, again, we melted our butter and let it cool. And I did it in the microwave. You can do it on the stove top as well if that's what you have available. And then to the butter, we are going to add our 1.5 cups of brown sugar, and we're going to mix it in. It's going to start to dissolve a little bit and melt into the butter because the butter's still a bit warm. So we're going to incorporate that all the way in, and then we're going to add our eggs one at a time to this mixture. Again, they started making bars in the 80s just because you didn't have to stand by the oven for an hour or so, taking cookies in and out and letting them cool. You could just whip up the batter, throw it in the pan, bake it, and done. This is when their big hustle and bustle started in the 80s, when people started being a lot busier. Children were being involved in a lot more extracurricular activities, and people didn't have as much time available at home. Or kids were home alone sometimes, and this was something that you could easily prepare and have available for them to grab. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we're adding our eggs one at a time. You want to mix them in. Mix it in well so all the egg is incorporated into the batter. And once you have your first egg mixed in, we're going to add our second egg to that. Again, if you're not comfortable cracking your eggs right over your mixture, do it in a separate bowl. It's a good practice for you. If you're super skillful, you could do the one-hand crack over the bowl. I have done it in the past, but I'm not super confident in my one-hand cracking ability, so I still use both hands and do it over the bowl. All right, so my eggs are fully incorporated. Now what you're going to do in a separate bowl is we're going to take that flour, which I have already prepared, the 2 cups with a little more, 2 tablespoons, and I added my half a teaspoon of baking soda right to it. Now we're going to use a whisk to break up the dry ingredients a little bit, just so we don't have any clumps in it, and that way it will help make our batter smoother and more consistent. You can also add a pinch of salt at this time if you so desire. All right, so once you have whisked up your dry ingredients to make sure they're all whipped together well, I'm going to start to add them to my wet ingredients. I'm going to add about half, and then I'm going to mix it in and then go back and add the rest. Again, this is a nice recipe for beginner bakers as well, or if you're trying to teach children. I just blew flour everywhere. It's super simple, and if you want to, It can be done by hand like I'm doing, or you could use your mixer or stand mixer as well. But being that the batter is a little bit softer, we use melted butter, I feel that we're able to use just our manual power here. All right, so that part of the flour is almost all mixed in. I'm gonna add the rest of our dry ingredients and also my teaspoon of, 1 tablespoon. We're adding a little bit more of the vanilla because it is a blondie, not a cookie. So it has a more vanilla taste to it. So this is I'm gonna add 3 teaspoons because there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon, or 3 capfuls, however you wanna measure it out. And then we're gonna continue to mix all our ingredients in. And then we're gonna carefully fold in our chocolate chips once all our dry ingredients have been mixed in. In the meantime, you can preheat your oven to 350 degrees. That's the standard baking temperature for a lot of baked goods, whether it be cookies, cakes, cupcakes, bars, things like that. 350 is pretty standard. All right, so scraping the sides of the bowls to get all the dry ingredients off and mixed in. Again, you can use your stand mixer if you need to be a little quicker. You might not have a lot of time to put this together. This is also great if you're going to a small gathering to whip this up real fast. All right, so you'll notice that it's more of a batter than a dough. That's how it's different than the cookie, the traditional cookie recipe. Now we're going to add our 1 1/4 cup of the chips. So I should have just about that amount left in my bag here. Yes, I have just a little less than that, but it will do for our recipe today. But if you're making the accurate recipe, it's 1 1/4 cups of chips. And they like the mini chips too, as do I, because I feel that you get more bang for your buck out of them because there's more of them. I feel they're better distributed through the bar cooking, so you get more in each bite, or you can make sure each bite has a chip. It's nothing worse than biting into a chocolate chip cookie that does not have a chip in it. And that's all you do for the batter. And then what you're gonna need to do is get your 13 by 9 inch pan, a standard cake pan, some of you may know it by, and you're gonna lightly grease your pan. Once that is done, we are going to add our batter right to the pan, and we're gonna spread it out evenly across the bottom. And then this is gonna bake in the 350 degree oven for 24 to 26 minutes. I think they just like to put that odd number in there so you remember it. Again, based on how well you know your oven, if it cooks fast or cooks slow, you will want to check on your bars. I'll probably check mine around the 20-minute mark to see if they're done. You want to see a nice golden crisp around the edge and that the center is cooked through, so you can check it with a knife. And that's it for the making of the chocolate chip blondie bar from the 1980s. We are making dishes through the decades all week, so stay tuned and we might serve up your favorite dish. I'll see you later. Thanks for joining me.